Hello, lag in between Josh and myself, a wired one. I'm sure for you guys who are live, you're seeing quite a bit of buffering. It might make this a little difficult, more like 4 years. I'll give you a minute to catch up with me here. Hearing that some people are to do the show would be great.
You know, talking about how much time in between us getting started on doing the show goes. Also, as a fan of Tokusatsu, there's certain things that we have nowadays that I couldn't imagine we'd have the option to have now, you know, back then. And one of those things came true this week. We finally got Garo on Blu-ray in the States, legally subbed for a very decent price. First half of the series just came out. It's at your local... it's the first 13 episodes of the...
Having to watch it over this past decade through unscrupulous sources, that was not... This lag between...
You know, you do what you can to support the series, games, there's all the spin-off...
I hope. Allow me to speak through it. Notifications from any other apps I want on my phone.
Does it give you notifications of Zordon? Does it tell you when...
I bet you that I can totally do that. So, I'm to Zordon. I get that. It personally, frankly. Maybe one day there will be a smartwatch that outdoes it. I know some people are really... It's everything I needed to do for relatively cheap, and I'm very satisfied with it. Yeah. Exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
Good for you.
Is there anything...
That's pretty much what the fuck.
Right now we're going to talk about the new Black Panther trailer. Looks very, very good. We're going to talk about what we saw and Josh's turn.
Because it's good to talk about. It's good to talk about movies that look hopeful,
right? Exactly.
As opposed to ragging on other movies, and whether or not they constitute as that, whether or not we actually think it is.
We ran into, we talked about this like a couple years ago. It was the giant robot battle that Americans challenged the Japanese to, and it finally happened a couple of nights ago. Didn't necessarily go the way that we were expecting it was going to go, but we're gonna.
It did and it didn't.
It did and it didn't. So we're gonna talk about what that was and why it is we feel that way, and hopefully we can later on get some feedback. Better robot fights come afterward as well, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
Alright, that having been said, it is time for follow-up.
So, Blown Justice League, of course, we got the final trailer not too long ago for Justice League, this movie coming out in just a few weeks in November. Fox loves their dream sequences, and we
get a Justice League movie.
Monday, October 30th, most likely in the evening, so get your money ready for that. I know it's got our money, and we are going to, as always.
See you after the movie comes out. Yay!
That one's probably going to have a vlog.
Okay.
We actually had Oliver Queen, played by Stephen Amell, there on the show, name drop Bruce Wayne for the first time ever in the history of the Arrowverse. They've kind of mentioned a vigilante in Gotham before, but this time he blatantly mentioned Bruce Wayne on camera, but it was still nice to have that name drop.
So, yay.
No, he's out there somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
The other bit of information there from the CW, kind of sad news, is that will be leaving the show later on this season. Of course, Nicer thinks he's going to do a revival of Hello, Dolly on Broadway.
Since being out here, there's been quite a lot of granted, this isn't Broadway or anything, but I'm finding Los Angeles, the way dudes don't go out and do the tours. But man, that would be nice to finally catch up on some theater that we've not...
So moving on to some other DC news, so a little bit of casting for Big Hero 6 has been cast just to Dove and Raven. I think this is the core cast that we're looking at here. Of course, noticeably absent would be Cyborg, but that makes sense since he's being used over in the...
Sort of
something like that.
Yeah. Alright, what else is going on, Josh?
Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to some Marvel news here. As I'll say, of the Defenders crossover, him saying that. Well, here it apparently Heroes for Hire. Admittedly, from watching the show, hopefully this will make things more palatable for the audience.
I couldn't hardly get into Defenders either.
I would prefer that he be the Iron Fist that I know he should be. But that, of course, is over on Luke Cage. On the Punisher end of things, 18th. Now, some of you might be theaters. Castle mow some guys down. The Punisher portion of things from New York City Comic Con, of course, due to the tragic events that had happened earlier that week, which I think was the best decision that Marvel could have made at the time. Still, though, it remains to be seen how people are going to take it. There still seems to be a lot of buzz.
A lot of people will, in fact, make that Marvel decision. I absolutely agree.
All right, and this coming up here in about 2 weeks,
Oh.
and having been approached by it, he said that his first order of business would be to make sure to cast point. I would think that's a bet. Two of us, one of us has watched that trailer, the other hasn't.
Yeah, you watched that trailer. I have not, because we reported to you guys last season. Mark Hamill said, "Stop watching stuff," and when we've seen less Porg hate.
Got 120 million hits within one day,
Oh my
which
God.
I don't think is surprising at all.
No, it's not. It is still
for-
impressive, though.
Yes. For my money, I don't believe that I
Have communication over how, depending on the theater.
It
was-
just got worse and worse as the night went on.
Right, right, but thankfully, you got through. I was down there, I was able to go up to a kiosk, and I was able to nab these tickets right here. So excited, I actually have
That's
them
right.
in my hand. That we're definitely gonna go. You're gonna be out here, and we're gonna see it together, and it's gonna be amazing. I'm so excited.
Yes. And of course, that goes without saying that is one of the Nerd High Holy Days, so we will not have a show that night.
Of course, absolutely.
Okay, so moving on to some other movie news. So, of course, the other big thing from New York Comic Con was our first look at a full trailer for Pacific Rim Uprising.
Oh, yeah.
This, of course, This gave me the fizz in so many different ways, and now we're seeing all of these different Jaegers,
Yeah,
even though
I
this
think
is coming out in March.
This is definitely the natural progression of where Pacific Rim had to go. If we were here to talk about this too.
Yes, okay, so let's move on to a little bit of interesting anime news. So, of course, we've been keeping an eye on Tiger and Bunny, whether or not they're actually going to move forward with a live-action adaptation on that. We did report that a while back, but just this week, Tiger and Bunny was actually added onto Netflix. For a while, it was over on Viz's website, and then for a little bit on Hulu, but now it's on Netflix for many people to see. The interesting thing about that, as you can see here in this photo...
You know, it's so nearly unavoidable. There goes Pepsi, like you see in this picture. There goes Ustream, and I'm blanking on the names of all these other...
Bondi, SoftBank, they're all gone.
That's so sad. As you said to the plot, it's so sad.
Yes. So that's the thing. I mean, you can enjoy Tiger and Bunny. It's just certain lines aren't going to make as much sense when they're referring to licensing and having sponsorship, and you don't actually see it on the costume.
Which part of, like, the...
Interestingly enough, we got an announcement in Antonio, where I am currently. It's going to hit Manger.
catching it much sooner than us. Like, they know they have to pull out at that given moment in time. Trust that it will also have a good narrative. I can't say
Yes.
that I'm expecting it, but...
Our first story with Black Panther.
Second, maybe you can lead me in some kind of structure that we just don't see a whole lot out of superhero films, and I'm so glad that it blends into the Marvel Cinematic Universe the way that it...
Speaking with T'Challa, but I just barely found out today that a good friend of mine back from high school who went into costuming and prosthetic works is actually working on the movie.
See, you got another reason to...
And to that, speaking to that same note, making dreams come true, people have been waiting for a very long time for this kind of thing, all of this rise up to African American community. You go on Twitter and you see people just losing their minds,
Oh, yeah.
being like, I'm already in line. I don't care if it's from a Black Panther movie. And here.
Society needs this, quite honestly. I don't want to point this too political, but people have been arguing it for some reason, as if it looks like it's trying to remove white people from existence and only wants to be represented at some point. That's kind of where I'm going to stop that conversation, but...
Well, see, that's the funny part about Jip coming in through the different filters. I'm proud of our technological accomplishment in Wakanda. This is something that was actually spoiled in this more silver. Killmonger's suit has the gold enhancements that we see more of in the comic books. So it's going to be interesting to see how that's played out on screen. I do understand the complaints that some people have that with a lot of Marvel movies, the first villain that they get is just a carbon copy of them.
Interesting too that it seems
Plus telling him you have no clue what they actually do there.
Mm-hmm.
And really, that's going to be people's concept of this coming into it. A lot of people, much like with Iron Man several years ago, people didn't know Iron Man. Iron Man was not a household name. That movie came out, Iron Man is a household name. I bet you anything that's exactly what's happening here. If you didn't already know because of Civil War, you're going to know come February who Black Panther is.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just at midnight. I want to see if it's the
same. To a movie like this anyway, like, oh, I'm tired of superheroes, but then when you put it in the context of, wait, but there's representation here, you know, there's a strong, full black cast, black actors, you know, they're in their strength showing, hey, we're here to make this movie, and it actually ties into stuff you like, and it's actually going to show you some things that you weren't aware of. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to what the metrics are going to be after this as to who's going and how much. I think this might set records.
Definitely. Anything else we need to talk about in regards specifically to this trailer?
I do appreciate the joke that, so granted that.
So then, thank you, Black Panther. Pressing discussion I can identify with very, and I don't.
You, like myself, will put in real-world money to increase your chances of getting said item. In my particular case, it was for the most recent vampire skin for Reaper there for the Halloween event here in Overwatch, which I did get, but it took a little bit. Now, admittedly, in my case, that was $10. Fine, but for some people, they really dig in to trying to get some of these items. I know that was the case with the Summer Games, getting that
was put round 1 quite a bit as of late. So I actually went very recently with our friends Mark and Samantha, and what they got caught up in a whole lot of, and they kind of roped me into this too, was a redemption game in which you slide. I managed to get one that sometimes it's more money than I should have, and all our booth, and you're like, yay, that's really ridiculous. Only limited to mobile gaming, but now we're starting to see it move into PC and console gaming more and more. That does not affect gameplay. Well, then what's the problem? And I guess to an extent they have a point. However, it does feel like this might be kind of a slippery slope. This might slide into territory where maybe it won't stay that way. Maybe it'll eventually become pay-to-win. But at the same time, at least it's not affecting gameplay. I can get mad, but only so mad
No, it doesn't affect game.
Going robots. They said in 1 year, I want to say 2 years ago.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Because the idea of this actually happening, it seems so far footage. Now, for a while, just going to show this on a strip, become very apparent just how much anything of this nature has been done before on this scale. I mean, we've had battle bots before, and you know, we've seen a couple of cool. There's a lot of trial and error that goes into that. Smart, and we have to be safe about it as much as possible.
Well, I do understand that, but at the same time, this felt very clearly like a vehicle for megabots specifically. It was all nothing but prep video out of megabots for their, what was the name of their robot? The Eagle Prime, and it showed almost no footage at all of the building process or the fixing up process. So yeah, it felt very staged in favor of megabots. The Eagle Prime was the robot that ended up winning the core fight of that battle between the two of them, and then they immediately, who knows how long ago they actually filmed the robot fight. This was all to get attention for megabots and not for Suidobashi, which just makes me want to go out and hunt down more information about Suidobashi.
For anybody watching Tokusatsu and watches a lot of Super Sentai or Kamen Rider, they were fighting in that, testing out their powers. It's that fighting where Toku happens, and then people online were behind. You know, I made this prediction online. Is 2 things from Kuratas and shot at them in the first round.
Well, yeah, and think about it though. that first round, there is no way you were watching during the first few minutes of that live stream where they were showing just how many, really clear to me that they would have been so injured. Very, very injured.
Yeah, there would have probably been a concussion involved. So odds are I'm here saying most likely that was staged. I'm not here saying that wasn't awesome, because it was.
Yeah, sure it was.
Like, everybody took that and ran it. You know, you see the robot, and that's what people... Well, not Metabots. I felt cruel. We know these things are huge and bulking and can only do so much, but, you know, having them just sit there and turn on the chain...
And I felt like the Kuratas, you know...
maneuverability.
It could have, and it didn't do it. It's better, I think, if put in a fair fight, it could really do some damage. And man, that drone, you're absolutely... Just the drone coming up, just taking out the viewing capabilities of the Eagle 1. The upper hand that the Japanese have.
Years of conditioning from sci-fi media and anime tells me that if we're having a robot fight, the person who wins is the person who has a secret maneuver to the fight, and that was Suidobashi with Kuratas.
Exactly. So, for that reason, as cool as...
And like most people after the match feel, I'm in the same boat. I want
audiences in an arena, but you know, somewhere it would be amazing. I do agree with what they were saying in that stream, that the next logical
actual manned robot WWE and fake. Oh, we need to get away from the announce table. Sell it.
Yeah, right.
Maybe watch WWE push the cape every week after we're done watching our anime.
Said, I don't know what else we can result of what that stream actually was.
But there's always hope for another fight.
Always hope for another fight, definitely. That, I think, is where we're going to kind of Patreon contributors who allow us to continue to